Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here. Now I have a whole bunch of new information for you about the EI extension. Now things have been moving rather quickly in the House of Commons, and it's actually been progressing through the legislative process faster than you may have previously expected. But despite the speed in which we've seen it pass through these different steps of the process of actually making this change official, there has been quite a lot of drama and a lot of controversy amongst the parties about things that I think could have been done better and problems that they actually have with the Liberal government. And even though things have been moving so quickly, there are some final steps that we need to keep our eyes out for, mainly the fact that it has to go to the Senate for a vote. So we're going to go over all the steps it's gone through, what's left, and what's keeping this from becoming a reality. And I'll give you an update on the context of exactly what has gone on in the House of Commons for this Bill C-24, bringing the EI extension and the closure of that loophole for the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. But before we do, make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up investment accounts. Now these days, it's more and more important that we take our finances into our own hands because we never know what's going to happen in this crazy world. So take a look at those links, and if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep supporting Canadian content just like this. Alright, so I want to get you the most important information right at the beginning of this video. So this is a layout of exactly what the legislative process is and the different steps it needs to go through in order for this EI extension to actually become a reality. This is the order that the legislation needs to go through. So we've already been through this, the introduction and first reading, second reading and referral to a committee. Now that just happened as of yesterday, or rather as of, I believe it was Thursday. So on Thursday, they actually passed this through the second reading and referred it to the HUMA committee. Now this is a step in the legislative process where the government and the committee that has been formed to take a look at this type of legislation, they'll go through clause by clause in the actual bill that's being presented to make sure there aren't any problems with it. So that's what happens here in this consideration in committee step. Now that actually surprisingly happened rather quickly. This committee held a meeting, I believe it was around 7 p.m. Eastern at night, again on Thursday, to take a look at this bill so that they would be ready for Friday, and they were going to present their findings to the House of Commons so that they could proceed more quickly. Now during this committee meeting, there was a little bit of drama. Of course, it's the job of the committee to go through the bill, see if there's anything that needs to be changed, and if there is anything that needs to be changed or that they determine needs to be changed, they need to do that by presenting potential amendments. Now once the committee finds out what amendments they'd like to put into the bill, they'll present that to the House of Commons, in which they'll go over and debate that and see if that's what they actually want to put through. Now the NDP brought forward an amendment to this bill inside of the committee that would allow for EI sickness benefits to be extended, as well as the EI regular benefits that are being extended by this bill. This is a big push that both the NDP and Bloc Québécois have been pushing for, and the NDP sort of took this as an opportunity to say, hey, the Liberal government, the entire government, everyone in the House of Commons, we've all said that we want EI sickness benefits to be extended. How come we're not just doing it right now so we don't have to go through this legislative process again? So the NDP decided in the committee, they presented this amendment to try to get this worked into this bill so they wouldn't have to go through the whole process all over again once they finally get around to extending sickness benefits. But this attempt to add this amendment was thwarted because it seems, at least from the NDP's perspective, that because the Liberal government wasn't on board with adding this amendment, they weren't able to add the amendment. So they didn't have the amount of support that they needed to in order to add the amendment to the bill and then later go forward and present this to the House of Commons. So that's where things stood as of that HUMA committee meeting in which they were going to look over this bill. Now fast forward to Friday and things start to move a little more quickly. That's when we moved on here to the report stage. Now they came in and said, hey, House of Commons, we've taken a look at this bill. We're not going to bring forward any amendments. We don't see any need to change anything in the bill. So that's essentially the report stage done. We've determined everything's a-okay. So because this bill came back from the committee clean with no amendments, they went straight to this third reading and adoption phase where they are going to debate this bill again. Now that has just finished up and I have some updates for you. Essentially, this is now the bill entering its third stage of debate, and it seems all of the previous problems that the governments and the various opposition parties had with the bill, well, they've kind of stayed the same. The Conservatives are of the mind that, hey, like, we recognize that we need to pass this because there are people that are stuck in between a rock and a hard place if we don't, but we are not very appreciative of the way that the Liberal government has done this. Now they're saying that, hey, we knew that this extension deadline deadline was coming up for months. How come the Liberal government didn't bring in this bill ahead of time for us to take a closer look at, so we would be able to take the time that we actually need to make sure there's nothing wrong with the bill before we pass it? Now, this is a big problem in the government right now because both the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, and the Conservative Party are calling out the Liberals saying, hey, this is exactly what you did last time when we created the bill that brought in the CRB and the CRCB. You rushed it through Parliament. You said, hey, we're up against a deadline here, just work together with us on this. But as a result, there were loopholes in the bill and they didn't have enough time to find those in the initial stages. So now the debates that they're having now about this bill are intended to fix the problems that were in the previous bill. Now, this was one of the main concerns that came up in this third reading stage. Now, every single party sort of tried to use this third reading debate to push forward their own personal policies, their own personal beliefs, or at least party-wide beliefs of these platforms that they're trying to push, right? The Conservatives have said to the Liberals in this very debate about this bill, saying, hey, why don't you have a plan for jobs moving forward? This is just a band-aid solution to get us till the end of September. What then? That's their main concern. The Bloc Québécois are saying, again, we have to vote this through because you've given us no other choice and we'd look like the bad guys, but we have some problems with this too, because if the Liberal government is saying that, hey, we need to support Canadians through this time, how come the Liberal government didn't support the Bloc Québécois motion that would increase old age security? Now, of course, the NDP's main concern was that they didn't extend the EI sickness benefits. Now, they say this is a huge problem because think of people who are going through their cancer treatments and they're not done their chemotherapy by the end of the 15 weeks of EI sickness benefits and they're not eligible for the program anymore. They also bring up a new thing called COVID long-term or long-haul COVID, which is what they're saying is that there's people that are experiencing these long-term symptoms of COVID and they're not being supported because they're not eligible for EI regular benefits and their EI sickness has already run out from the first time that they were dealing with the problem. Now, surprisingly, the NDP actually came out in support, or at least in defense, of the Conservatives. You may have heard that some Liberals are suggesting that the Conservatives have been holding up bills in the House of Commons and delaying things. Now, the NDP said, hey, right here with this bill right now, we're working so hard to pass this through as quickly as possible, and it actually has been passed in an unprecedented amount of time. So the NDP are sort of defending the Conservatives, saying, hey, they're actually not obstructing this. They maybe did a little bit with that previous bill with the CCB increase, but not right now with this EI employment insurance extension. Everyone's actually kind of worked together more or less because they've been forced to, because of the short time frame that they have to pass it before people will run out of their benefits. And again, if I'm going too fast with any of this information, you can click the gear icon in the bottom of the video where you can slow it down. There's just so much information, and I thought I would bring it to you as quickly as possible. So after that debate was completed here on Friday, they got through the third reading and adoption stage, and that was actually passed. So they're finished that stage. So we're finished everything here so far. So now let me clear this up for you. Now we're stuck on this stage right here, which is consideration and passage by the Senate. Now, we've seen in the past that sometimes bills can get delayed in the Senate based on a number of different concerns. So we're hoping that at least for you, if you're if someone who's benefiting from this EI extension, someone who's sort of stuck right now, wondering if their benefits are going to be extended or if they're going to lapse, well, we need to keep a closer look at the Senate to make sure that this debate goes smoothly and that they're able to pass it. Of course, I'm going to keep you updated on that right here on the channel, so subscribe if you haven't already done so. Now, after the Senate passes it, that's when it receives royal assent. That just means that it goes off to the Governor General or the interim Governor General, as we have it right now, where they sign off on this and it actually becomes an official bill. It becomes law, and then when the coming into force happens, that's when this change is scheduled to happen in the legislation. That's when we can expect to know for sure that these extensions are going to be automatically applied. Now, as of right now, I'm not entirely sure when the Senate is going to debate this. Now, it's Friday when I'm recording this, so it's likely that this is going to be pushed at least until Monday for the Senate to take a look at this, debate it, and decide if they're going to pass it or not. Now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there is precedent for the Senate finding something wrong in a bill and sending it back to the House of Commons for further debate. So this is something that could happen, but we're going to have to wait and find out after this Senate debate if this is going to happen and we're going to have this delay, or if it's going to be passed right through and we'll finally know for certain. So that is where we are right now. It seems like they've actually been able to pass this through the legislative process rather quickly, but again, like I mentioned, all of the parties are taking issue with the way the Liberals have done it, and all of them have their own sort of concerns they want to push forward, right? But they have all worked together in order to get this passed, because let's face it, all of these parties would not really get the best reception from the public if they were the ones to say, hey, out of precedent, Liberals, we're going to sort of stall this and pause it and take a closer look at it because you've been the ones that have delayed bringing this to us in the first place. Nobody wants to take that look and bring that onto their party, because not everybody watches these YouTube videos to find out what's actually going on. And when people read the headline, conservatives delay EI benefits, they don't really have the full context. So that's what these parties are afraid of. And because of that, they're more quickly rushing this through the legislative process. And I hope you found these videos helpful. And if you've found them helpful, it's likely that a friend or a family member could too. And it would do a huge amount of help for the channel if you were to share these videos with someone else who you think might appreciate them. And make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up your own investment accounts. Now, with the crazy past year we have had, it's become even more obvious that we need to take our wealth and our future wealth into our own hands as quickly as we possibly can right now. I think everyone should be investing and at least learning about that personal finance side of things as soon as possible. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. This channel is supported by viewers like you. Thanks, channel members.